Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, January 31st, 2022, last podcast of the month. Today we're going to recap yesterday's AFC and NFC championship games. We'll recap the weekend's NBA, NHL, and college basketball look ahead to tonight's games. We'll talk Australian Open and talk about how that finished out. We'll go over the Farmers Insurance Open, news and notes, and my best bet of the day. All right, we're going to start with football. We had the conference championships over the weekend. One result was surprising and the other was not. The Bengals over the Chiefs 27-24 in overtime to advance to their first Super Bowl in 33 years. As this is the first time the Chiefs aren't in the Super Bowl in 3 years. Joe Burrow is amazing. 23 of 38, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 39, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, including the interception in overtime that gave the Bengals the shot to march down the field and put it on the leg of Evan McPherson for the game-winning kick. But the Bengals, nobody would have thought they'd be here at the Super Bowl before the start of the season. This is probably the most surprising team in the Super Bowl. Probably since the 49ers 2 years ago, because I don't think anybody thought they'd be in the Super Bowl. But that 49ers team from 2 years ago is much better than this year's Bengals team, in my opinion. And all due respect to Cincinnati, they really have gotten lucky along the way, obviously, if you see how their games in the postseason have been won. But this is probably the worst team in the Super Bowl probably since the 2016 Falcons when Matt Ryan was the MVP. That team wasn't that great. The 2017 Eagles were a good team, but they just had a backup quarterback lead them to a Super Bowl victory, an above-average backup quarterback at the time. You could argue Denver in 2015 because of Peyton Manning being all deteriorated, but even that team was really, really good, despite Peyton Manning being washed up at the time. The 2012-13 Ravens had a good defense, kind of reminiscent to the Niners teams that we've seen over the last couple years in the playoffs. I mean, maybe you could make a case the Giants, the 2011 Giants, or the 2007 Giants. But yeah, the Bengals, good for them, good for Joe Burrow. This is a contender that arrived very early, to say the least. And meanwhile, Cincinnati, or Kansas City, what a disappointment losing to the Bengals. I mean, you were a big home favorite by 7.5 points, and you had a pretty nice lead, and you couldn't put Joe Burrow and Cincinnati away. So, a season coming to an end in disappointment for the Chiefs. And on the NFC side, the Rams over the 49ers, 20-17, as the Rams advance to their second Super Bowl in 5 years under Sean McVay. And obviously, their second in 4 years. As the Rams move on, the Rams, you could argue, kind of got lucky too, because the Bucs came back against them, and they nearly blew that Bucs game. And the 49ers had a lead against them in the fourth quarter last night, and the Rams came up from behind and won. And then they dominated Arizona. That was their best game of the postseason so far. And they dominated that first half against the Bucs, and then the Bucs came back. But the Rams can just find ways to win in any type of style. They played the 49ers style and beat the 49ers at their own game. And meanwhile, for San Francisco, great year. Great bounce back year. Coming to the NFC Championship a year after going 6-10 is a good accomplishment. I think this is a successful year for the 49ers. I think I said on the podcast when I did the playoff teams, where did it have to go for it to be a successful season? I think I said the divisional round for the 49ers, but they exceeded that. So good on them. But now the question is, what's next for Jimmy Garoppolo? And that's going to be a dominant storyline this offseason with what is expected to be a very dominant carousel of quarterbacks on the market. By the way, Matt Stafford, 31 of 45, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Jimmy Garoppolo, 16 of 30, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Alrighty. Now I'll move on to the NBA. We will recap the games from the weekend, and we will look ahead to tonight's slate. So Friday, Magic over the Pistons, 119-103. Hornets over the Lakers, 117-114. Hawks over the Celtics, 108-92. Nuggets over the Pelicans, 116-105. Heat over the Clippers, 121-114. Trailblazers over the Rockets, 125-110. Grizzlies over the Jazz, 119-109. Pacers over the Thunder, 113-110 in overtime. Spurs over the Bulls, 131-122. Suns over the Timberwolves, 134-124. And the Bucks over the Knicks, 123-108. Saturday, Celtics over the Pelicans, 107-97. Mavs over the Pacers, 132-105. And Rick Carlisle's return to Dallas. 76ers over the Kings, 103-101. Raptors over the Heat, 124-120. Triple overtime. That was a great game. Grizzlies over the Warriors, 115-95. And the Warriors over the Nets, 110-106 on ABC. Sunday, Hawks over the Lakers, 129-121. Clippers over the Hornets, 115-90. Bulls over the Trailblazers, 131-16. Pistons over the Cavs, 115-105. Magic over the Mavs, 110-108. Nuggets over the Bucks, 136-100. Timberwolves over the Jazz, 126-106. And the Suns over the Spurs, 115-110. Now I look ahead to a nice window for tonight, 7 o'clock. You have the Pelicans and the Cavaliers. My projection is the Pelicans as a 13 and 7/8 underdog, total of 212.6. Meanwhile, it is 8.5 and 210, laying the points. Clippers Pacers. My projection is Clippers by 2 and 5/8, total 215.75. It pretty much stayed status quo after factoring all the injuries for either side. Indy's favored by 1.5, total 220. I like the under a lot. A lot of big names are out in that game. Grizzlies 76ers. My projection is Memphis by 5/8, total 216.5. Meanwhile, it's 3.5 for Philly and 220. I am taking Memphis plus the 3.5 and plus 136 to win outright. 7:30 NBA TV, Heat Celtics. My projection is the Celtics by 5/8, total 213.05. Meanwhile, it is Boston 2.5, total 209.5. I'll take the over. Kings Knicks from Madison Square Garden. My projection is New York by 8 and 5/8, total 216.4. Meanwhile, it's 5.5 and 214.5. I'm laying the 5.5 in New York. Raptors Hawks. My projection is the Hawks by 6, total 218.45. Meanwhile, it's 2 and 219. Laying the 2 with Atlanta. That's a Vegas nose game. Warriors Rockets at 8 o'clock. My projection is Golden State by 14 and 7/8, total 218.65. Meanwhile, it is 10.5 and 230. Under. And the Blazers and the Thunder. My projection is Portland by 3 3/4, total 215.15. Meanwhile, it's 4 and 218.5. I'm going to take the under in this game. All right, now I'll move on to the NHL. We will recap the games from last night, and we will look ahead to today and obviously recap the other weekend games. We'll begin with Friday night. Red Wings over the Penguins 3-2 in a shootout. Wild over the Rangers 3-2. Abs over the Blackhawks 6-4. Caps over the Stars 5-0. Bruins over the Coyotes 2-1. Saturday, Ducks over the Sens 2-1. Flyers over the Kings 4-3 in an overtime on a game winner by Cam Atkinson. Jets over the Blues 4-1. Panthers over Sharks 5-4 in overtime. Oilers over the Habs 7-2. Leafs over the Wings 7-4. Golden Knights over the Lightning 3-2 in a shootout. Hurricanes over the Devils 2-1. Sabres over the Coyotes 3-1. And the Flames over the Canucks 1-0 in overtime. And then yesterday's games, the Rangers over the Kraken 3-2. The Kings over the Penguins 4-3. Hurricanes over the Sharks 2-1. Blue Jackets over the Habs 6-3. Stars over the Bruins 6-1. Wild over the Islanders 4-3. And the Avs over the Sabres 4-1. All right, now we look ahead to tonight's window. It's a smaller window. 7 o'clock NHL Network. You have the Panthers and the Blue Jackets. Panthers are -310. The Blue Jackets plus 245. Over under 6.5. Overs -142. Unders plus 116. Panthers -1.5 is -120. Blue Jackets plus 1.5 is -102. This is a hard one, but I'm going to go contrarian and pick the under here. Under 6.5 at plus 116. 7:30, Oilers, Senators. Oilers are -210. Sens are plus 176. Over under 6.5, -110 each way. Oilers -1.5 is plus 120. Edmonton plus 1.5 is -148. Tough one here, but I'm going to go under 6.5, -110. Ducks, Red Wings. It's a pick of -110 each way. Over under 6. Over is even money. Under is -122. Ducks plus 1.5 is -250. Red Wings -1.5 is plus 198. The Red Wings have not played that well of late, despite winning in a shootout against the Pens and such. But I'm going to go with the Ducks on the road. 7:30, Canucks, Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are -111. The Canucks are -108. Over under 5.5. Over is -122. Under is even money. Canucks plus 1.5 is -300. Blackhawks -1.5 is plus 235. I'm going to go with the Canucks as a slight dog at -108. And last but not least, the Devils and the Maple Leafs. The Leafs are -345. The Devils are plus 270. Over under 6.5. Over is plus 104. Under is -128. Devils plus 1.5 is plus 116. Maple Leafs -1.5 is -142. I'm going to go over 6.5 at plus 104 in that game. All right, college basketball time. We will recap the weekend it was, and we will look ahead to tonight's games. All right, we'll begin with Friday night. BU over Colgate, 76-72. Holy Cross over Lehigh, 67-65. Penn over Harvard, 78-74. Stony Brook over New Hampshire, 76-69. Monmouth over Canisius, 72-67. Wyoming over Air Force, 63-61. Northern Kentucky over Purdue Fort Wayne, 59-49. Dayton over Rhode Island, 53-51. Fairfield over Rider, 76-65. St. Peter's over Manhattan, 77-51. Siena over Niagara, 60-56. Ohio over Buffalo, 74-53. Toledo over Akron, 84-76. Quinnipiac over Marist, 94-87. Cleveland State over Wright State, 71-67. UNLV over Colorado State, 88-74. New Mexico over San Jose State, 86-70. And Boise State over Fresno State, 68-63 in overtime. All right, Saturday. Number 8 Duke over Louisville, 74-65. TCU over number 19 LSU, 77-68. Number 25 Davidson over LaSalle, 77-69. Toledo over Wichita State, 67-66. Butler over Georgetown, 56-53. Miami over Georgia Tech, 73-62. Number 10 Michigan State over Michigan, 83-67. Army over Lafayette, 60-56. Arkansas State over Coastal Carolina, 73-66. VMI over East Tennessee State, 83-79. Chattanooga over Siddles, 75-62. Number 1 Auburn over Oklahoma, 86-68. Number 21 Xavier over Creighton, 74-64. Number 23 Iowa State over Missouri, 67-50. Navy over American, 47-45. FE over UTSA, 73-64. Campbell over High Point, 77-72. North Carolina over NC State, 100-80. Dartmouth over Columbia, 76-63. UMBC over Binghamton, 70-68. Vermont over Maine, 81-68. Youngstown State over Milwaukee, 86-72. Northern Iowa over Illinois State, 79-64. St. Louis over Duquesne, 77-53. St. Bonaventure over St. Joe's, 80-69. Sanford over Western Carolina, 74-64. Towson over Drexel, 66-62. Arkansas over West Virginia, 77-68. Number 3, Arizona over Arizona State, 67-56. Indiana over Maryland, 68-55. SMU over Temple, 69-61. Belmont over Tennessee Martin, 87-58. Rice over Southern Miss, 76-62. Middle Tennessee over Western Kentucky, 93-85. Dixie State over Chicago State, 79-65. Longwood over Winthrop, 92-88. Virginia Tech over Florida State, 85-72. Oakland over UIC, 81-74. Georgia State over Yale Monroe, 73-62. Western Illinois over St. Thomas, Minnesota, 81-52. South Dakota State over North Dakota State, 80-76. Miami of Ohio loses to Eastern Michigan, 85-75. Ball State over Western Michigan, 83-72. Alabama over number 4 Baylor, 87-78. Norfolk State over South Carolina State, 87-69. Howard over NC Central, 75-74 in overtime. Long Beach State over UC Davis, 70-63. Alcorn State over Southern, 68-64. Maryland Eastern over Coppin State, 64-61. North Texas over Louisiana Tech, 63-62. Portland State over Northern Arizona, 97-76. Ole Miss over Kansas State, 67-56. Northwestern State over Texas A&M Corpus Christi, 90-76. Seattle over Sam Houston, 78-63. Abilene Christian over Lamar, 85-82. UNC Asheville over Presbyterian, 68-67. FC Upstate over NCAT, 84-64. Stetson over Eastern Kentucky, 113-95. App State over Little Rock, 72-57. VC over Richmond, 64-62. Oral Roberts over Denver, 89-80. Charleston over Northeastern, 81-63. William and Mary over Alon, 65-61. Delaware over James Madison, 85-69. Central Michigan over Northern Illinois, 69-63. Florida over Oklahoma State, 81-72. Number 14, Villanova over St. John's, 73-62. Number 24, Illinois over Northwestern, 59-56. Eastern Illinois over Tennessee State, 62-57. Gardner-Webb over Radford, 61-42. Washington over Utah, 77-73 in double overtime. Arkansas Pine Bluff over Mississippi Valley State, 74-68. Southeast Louisiana over Incarnate Word, 78-68. Southeast Missouri State over SIU Edwardsville, 85-77. Murray State over Morehead State, 77-66. Grambling over Jackson State, 73-64. Florida A&M over Alabama A&M, 65-60. Mount St. Mary over St. Fran, PA, 71-54. Lipscomb over North Florida, 77-74. Texas State over UT Arlington, 58-53. South Dakota over North Dakota, 71-58. Kent State over Bowling Green, 91-83. Hampton over Charleston Southern, 78-74. North Alabama over Kennesaw State, 71-58. Number 12, Kentucky over number 5, Kansas, 80-62. Number 13, Texas Tech over Mississippi State, 76-50. Texas Southern over Prairie View, 75-74 in overtime. Montana State over Idaho, 70-64. Notre Dame over Virginia, 69-65. Yale over Princeton, 80-74. Jacksonville over Central Arkansas, 79-59. Furman over Mercer, 80-50. Vandy over Georgia, 85-77. Number 20, UConn over DePaul, 57-50. Rutgers over Nebraska, 63-61. Number 15, USC over Cal, 79-72. Marshall over UAB, 84-81. Old Dominion over Charlotte, 68-52. San Diego over Loyola Marymount, 69-65. San Francisco over Santa Clara, 88-85. Albany over NJIT, 64-53. Jacksonville State over Liberty, 77-67. Bellarmine over Florida Gulf Coast, 74-63. Robert Morris over Green Bay, 62-60. Troy over South Alabama, 77-68. Wofford over UNC Greensboro, 85-66. UNC Wilmington over Hofstra, 78-72. Number 7, Houston over UCF, 63-49. Texas over number 18, Tennessee, 52-51. Alabama State over Bethune-Cookman, 79-73. Tulsa over South Florida, 76-45. UC Riverside over Cal State Fullerton, 67-54. Nichols over Houston Baptist, 73-61. Tarleton over Texas Rio Grande, 79-64. St. Mary's over Pepperdine, 81-57. Syracuse over Wake, 94-72. Georgia Southern over Louisiana, 66-65. Missouri State over Evansville, 72-58. Omaha over UMKC, 69-68. Austin Peay over Tennessee Tech, 58-55. South Carolina over Texas A&M, 74-63. Number 2, Gonzaga over Portland, 104-72. UC Irvine over Cal Poly, 72-48. UTEP over FIU, 79-68. Montana over Eastern Washington, 69-59. 61-59, I should say. New Mexico State over Grand Canyon, 71-61. Number 7, UCLA over Stanford, 66-43. Pacific over BYU, 76-73. Oregon over Oregon State, 78-56. UC San Diego over Cal State Bakersfield, 83-75. Weber State over Sacramento State, 79-59. Stephen F. Austin over Cal Baptist, 81-77. Utah State over Nevada, 78-49. And Hawaii over UC Santa Barbara, 65-62. All right, now we look back on yesterday's results. Cornell over Brown, 74-72. Number 6 Purdue over number 16 Ohio State, 81-78. Cincinnati over East Carolina, 60-59. Wright State over Purdue Fort Wayne, 75-63. Northern Kentucky over Cleveland State, 78-72. George Washington over Fordham, 64-55. Number 17 Providence over number 22 Marquette, 65-63. Number 11 Wisconsin over Minnesota, 66-60. Fairleigh Dickinson over Central Connecticut, 75-55. Bryant over LIU, 88-81. Iona over St. Peter's, 85-77. Morgan State over Delaware State, 82-70. Wagner over St. Francis Brooklyn, 72-69. Drake over Loyola Chicago, 77-68. Bradley over Indiana State, 67-52. George Mason over UMass, 72-62. Siena over Quinnipiac, 85-76. Manhattan over Marist, 72-66. Niagara over Monmouth, 70-69 in overtime. Rider over Canisius, 70-62. BC over Pitt, 69-56. Southern Illinois over Valpo, 77-55. Bucknell over Loyola Maryland, 82-80 in overtime. New Orleans over McNeese, 84-78. And Washington State over Colorado, 70-43. Now we look ahead to tonight's window of games. 6 o'clock, Colgate Lafayette. My projection is Colgate by 6 1/8. And it is 8.5 and 140.5. I'm taking Lafayette in the points. 7 o'clock, number 9 Duke at Notre Dame on ESPN. My projection is Duke by 7 3/4, and it's 5.5 and 143.5. I'm laying the points. Michigan, Dearborn, Detroit, we can skip. Liberty, Kennesaw State. My projection for this game is Liberty by 12 and 5/8. And it's 6.5 and 138.5. I'm laying the points with Liberty. UMKC and Western Illinois. My projection is Western by 5.5. And it's 5.5 and 142.5. I'll take the over. Hartford, Maine. My projection is Hartford by 4 7/8. And it is 6.5 and 135.5. Not high enough to bet Maine yet, but I'll take the over. Albany, Vermont. My projection is Vermont by 20 1/8. And it's 15.5 and 129.5. I'm laying the points. Northern Arizona and Southern Utah. My projection is Northern Arizona by 18 3/4. And it's 12.5 and 146.5. I'm laying the points with Southern Utah. Drexel and UNC Wilmington. My projection is Wilmington by 1 1/8. And it's 1.5 and 139.5. I'm going to take the over, but I don't feel good about it. CBS Sports Network, Holy Cross and Boston University. My projection for this game is BU by 21 1/4. And it's 15.5 and 135.5. I'm laying the points. Morehead State and Tennessee Tech. My projection is State by 15 3/4. And it's 4.5 and 137.5. I'm laying the points. SIU Edwardsville and Austin P. My projection is Austin P by 6 3/4. And it's 3.5 and 136.5. I'm laying the points. ESPN U Wofford Mercer. My projection is Mercer by 3. And it is, let's see here. Wofford 4.5, total 136. I'm taking Mercer plus 4.5 and plus 158 to win outright. Big Ten Network, Iowa, Penn State. My projection is Iowa by 5 5/8, and it's 4 and 139.5. I'll take the over. 7:30, Howard, SC State. My projection is Howard by 3. and it's 7.5 and 151.5. I'm taking South Carolina State plus 7.5. Morgan State and Maryland Eastern Shore. My projection is Morgan by 12, and it's Eastern Shore by 2.5, total 139. I'm taking Morgan plus 2.5 and plus 114 to win outright. Coppin State and Delaware State. My projection is Coppin by 3 5/8. It's 11.5 and 142.5. I take it Delaware State plus 11.5. 8 o'clock, South Dakota State and North Dakota. My projection is South Dakota State by 22 5/8. And 16.5 and 161.5. I'm laying the points. Bethune-Cookman and Bama A&M. My projection is Bama A&M by 5, and it's 2.5 and 122.5. I'm laying the points. Colorado State, Wyoming. My projection is Colorado State by 8 1/8, and this game's on Fox Sports 1. It's 1 and 146. I'm laying the 1 with Colorado State. Southern and Jackson State at 8:30. My projection is Southern by 1 5/8, and it's 1.5 and 130.5. I'll take the over. Grambling and Alcorn State. My projection is Grambling by 2 1/4, and it's Alcorn by 5.5, total 137.5. I'm taking Grambling plus 5.5 and plus 210 to win outright. 9 o'clock, ESPN, West Virginia, number 4 Baylor. My projection is Baylor by 13 1/8, and it's 14 136.5. I'll take the over. Eastern Washington and Weber State. My projection is Weber by 14 1/4, and it is 10.5 and 155.5. I'll lay the points. Norfolk State and NC Central on ESPNU. My projection is Norfolk by 8 1/8, and it's 3 and 137. I'll lay the 3. Florida A&M and Alabama State. My projection is A&M by 5 3/8, and it's Bama State by 2.5, total 134.5. I take Florida A&M plus a 2.5 and plus 114 to win outright. Pacific and Santa Clara. My projection is Santa Clara by 15 3/4. And it's 12.5 and 145. I'll lay the points. ESPNU or 2, TCU Oklahoma. My projection is Oklahoma by 2 7/8. And it is 5.5 and 128.5. I'm taking TCU plus the 5.5. 10 o'clock. Fox Sports 1, New Mexico and San Diego State. My projection is San Diego State by a whopping 23 7/8. And it's 14 and 138.5. I'm laying the points. And last but not least, 10:30, Northern Colorado and Portland State. My projection is Northern Colorado by 6 5/8, and it's 3.5 and 148. I'm laying the 3.5 with Northern Colorado. Okay, now we'll move on to the Australian Open from the weekend, which was an interesting finish to say the least. The women's final on late Friday night. Number 1 seeded Ashley Barty over 27 seed Danielle Collins in 2 sets. It was 6-3 in the first set, and then 7-6 with a 7-2 in the second set. So Ashley Barty comes through on the women's side. And on the men's side, on late Saturday night, 6-seed Rafael Nadal over 2-seeder Daniil Medvedev in 5 sets. Great comeback from Nadal. Medvedev was 6-2 and then 7-6 with a 7-5. Then Nadal 6-4, 6-4, and 7-5. So congratulations to Rafael Nadal and Ashley Barty on their Australian Open Grand Slam victories. All right, now move on to the Farmers Insurance Open from the weekend. And your winner in overtime with the score of 15 under with a playoff score of a 4, Luke Liss And then with 15 under with a playoff score of a 5, Walter Zalatoris for second. Tied for third with 14 under, Jason Day, John Rahm, and Cam Triangle. Tied for sixth with 13 under, Justin Rose, Sanjay M, Joaquin Neiman, Pat Perez, and Aaron Ray. Tied for 11th with 12 under, Saibu Kim, Brett Horschel, Michael Thompson, Taylor Montgomery, and Austin Smotherman. Tied for 16th with 11 under, Sepp Straka, Mark Leishman, Ryan Palmer, and Taylor Pendrith. Tied for 20th with 10 under, Daniel Berger, Taylor Gooch, Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, and Cam Young. Tied for 25th with 9 under, Mito Pereira, Doc Redman, Satish Thaglia, Dustin Johnson, and Peter Monlotti. Tied for 30th with 8 under, Nate Taylor, Hideki Matsuyama, Maverick McNeely, and Lucas Griffin. Tied for 34th with 7 under, J.J. Spahn, Matt Neesmith, Xander Schauffele, Doug Gim, and Grayson Sigg. Tied for 39th with 6 under, Kevin Streelman, Gary Woodland, Alex Loren, Jonathan Vegas, Sebastian Munoz, and Bill Haas. Tied for 46th with 5 under, Scott Stallings, Patrick Reed, Martin Laird, Hank Labiota, Cam Champ, Anirban Laree, Kevin Tway, Jimmy Walker, Christian Ziedenhout, Kevin Chappell. Tied for 56 with 4 under, Wyndham Clark, Cam Davis, Robert Streb, Adam Schenk, David Lipsky, and Alex Smalley. Tied for 62nd with 3 under, Patrick Rogers and Francesco Molinari. 64th with 2 under, Matthew Wolff. Tied for 65th with 1 under, Keegan Bradley and Adam Long. Tied for 67th at even, Camilo Vegas, Cam Thompson, and Joseph Bromlett. And then now notables. Tied for 70th with 1 over, Cesar V, Carlos Ortiz, Rory Sabatini. 76th with 4 over, Sam Piercy. 77th with 5 over, Mariano Gillick. 78th with 7 over, C.T. Pond. Among those cut, Aaron Weiss, Adam Cook, Mackenzie Hughes, Mark Hubbard, Max Homa, Joaquin Herman, Bryson DeChambeau, Ricky Fowler, James Hahn, Patton Kazir, Taylor Moore, Bryce Garnett, Sam Burns, Taylor Hogue, Corey Connors, Henrik Norlander, Jason Duffner, Danny Lee, Brooks Koepka, Vincent Whaley, Emiliano Grillo, Brant Snecker, Tony Finau, Brock Stewart, Keith Mitchell, Hudson Swafford, JT Potson, Joel Dahm, and Lucas Hodges, Phil Mickelson, Sam Ryder, Kyle Stanley, Tyson McCumber, Dylan Vanderwalt, Adam Hadwin, Jason Hadley, Dylan Fratelli, Jordan Spieth, Nate Watney, Richie Wrensky, Henry Higgs. And that's it among notables cut. Next golf tournament is this upcoming weekend. The AT&T Pebble Beach Pro AM at Pebble Beach Golf Links in California. So that's going to be a fun tournament to watch on full. All right, now the news and notes from the weekend. There's a lot that I wanted to touch on. A lot of coaching hires. The Giants hired Brian DeBall. We talked about that on the Saturday podcast with James Celestin, as well as the news regarding Tom Brady. So if you want to listen to that show, it is the previous episode, which is number 1105. Odell Beckham Jr. was very emotional after the game. He said, "I told you, this is everything," he said. A Bengals fan ran into a wall after the big win over the Chiefs. An NFL bettor won nearly $600,000 because he predicted the exact scores of both championship games to turn $20 into $579,000. Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly had a nice moment after the game ended. Joe Burrow had a post-game fit as he confirms his diamond chain is real after winning the AFC Championship. Jamar Chase was in tears after the win. Josh Allen made a funny tweet after the Chiefs won the coin toss. So that was entertaining. There's a lot of 49ers fans in that Rams game the other day. And the irony is that the Rams are hosting the Super Bowl, and they play in their home stadium for the Super Bowl. Now the question is, how many Bengals fans will be in the building for that game? So that is an interesting little subplot to follow. The Las Vegas Raiders made a couple hires over the weekend. Dave Ziegler as their new general manager. Dave Ziegler was the Patriots' director of player personnel. So, hiring from the Bill Belichick tree. So, it's a nice hire. And along with them comes Josh McDaniels, as they made him their next head coach. So, Josh McDaniels getting a second chance. Don't forget, he initially agreed to the Colts job and then backed out. And then Andrew Luck retired. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories like McDaniels backed out because he realized Andrew Luck's health and all. So McDaniels finally gets that second chance nearly a decade after his first head coaching stint. The Saints did a really nice tribute for Sean Payton as Saints players got together and made this beautiful tribute for the now former Saints head coach. The Packers are optimistic that Aaron Rodgers will return, as they have cautious optimism that he'll return after the two parties had a meeting to discuss the future. Finalists for the Dolphins job: Brian DeBall, who took the Giants job, Kellen Moore, and Mike McDaniel. I think it should be Mike McDaniel. He's the 49ers offensive coordinator. And I think that he deserves a shot at a job. And the Vikings interview Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh for their head coaching opening. So we'll see who the Vikings end up hiring. So Joe Burrow makes draft history as he's the first number one pick ever to start a Super Bowl in his first two seasons. So that is pretty cool for Burrow. Bills quarterback coach Ken Dorsey is either going to be the offensive coordinator for the Giants or the Bills. So we'll see where he goes. The Ball's first words as New York Giants head coach: "I promise we will work our tails off." Dabo Swinney doubles down on the NIL as he's against the professionalization of college athletics and says it's not sustainable. Brian Kelly dancing with the crew as he busts out the dad moves during a visit. And Twitter roasts Brian Kelly. And then Lane Kiffin says, "It can't be real. Did you lose a bet or something?" The 76ers banned the fan for the incident with Carmelo Anthony. for fan conduct violations, as we thought would happen. The Seattle Storm just signed Brian January. And the Lynx to sign Angel McCoughtry. So that is a big deal for that team. Andrew Jones, who was diagnosed with leukemia in 2018, is donating a portion of his NIL money to cancer research. That's so nice. Bruce Pearl extended by the Auburn Tigers 8 years. That's well deserved after having a year like this year. Henrik Lundqvist wasn't the only former NHL player to get his number retired over the weekend, as Sergei Zubov got his number retired by the Dallas Stars. Stanley Cup winning defenseman and 4-time All-Star, 56 to the Raptors in the American Airlines Center. And obviously, Henrik Lundqvist's number 30 went into the Madison Square Garden Raptors on Friday night. And Henrik Lundqvist was talking on the broadcast on Friday night, and he called the Matsu Guerrero goal to tie the game. As Lundqvist says to the announcers, "Don't let that guy score." And that game ended very wildly, as the Garden went crazy as they thought the Rangers tied the game with the second left, but the goal got weighed off. So that was unfortunate. Habs goalie Carey Price wants to play this year, as he's motivated to return, but is unsure if his knee injury will make it possible this season. There are Bengals players taking shots after the big win and booking the trip to the Super Bowl. Odell Beckham Jr. had Kobe Bryant cleats on yesterday, which was awesome. The Royal Rumble was over the weekend, and Ronda Rousey was present. And there were some other interesting people there. Johnny Knoxville was at the Royal Rumble, and he even got some offense in, which was pretty cool. And then Bad Bunny was in the Rumble too, as he crashes it and goes straight to work. And then some NBA stuff. LeBron James was still hurt. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out through the All-Star break with a right ankle sprain. Joe Ingles was helped off the court last night, as they fear he suffered a significant left knee injury and will have an MRI after his knee buckled in the game against the Timberwolves. So let's hope that Ingles is okay. Monty Williams to coach the All-Star game after getting the win against the Spurs, as Monty Williams will coach Team LeBron. The Sacramento Kings ended their pursuit for Ben Simmons, as they turned elsewhere in trade talks after it was purposely eager to land Ben Simmons. Cole Anthony to the dunk contest. Oh, I like this potential hire. The Jaguars are interviewing former Raiders intern head coach Rich Bisaccia today. So that is awesome. I hope Rich gets another opportunity. He did great last year with Vegas. And reports say that Goran Dragic is certain to be traded, as the Raptors are finding great interest in deals for Dragic and likely to be dealt by the trade deadline. And some non-sports news. Tiger King's Joe Exotic was sentenced to 21 years in prison. That's unfortunate. HBO's Max's Pretty Little Liars reboot to film in upstate New York. So that's pretty cool. And unfortunate news, Dr. Johnny Fever, who is Howard Hesseman on WKRP in Cincinnati, passes away at the age of 81. So that's a legend there in Cincinnati. So thoughts and prayers to his family and his colleagues at WKRP. So that's just unfortunate news. And then news came out on, I believe it was earlier in the week, that Masked Singer was renewed for season 7, which will begin on March 9th. And then other show news that we normally like to cover, American Idol starting February 27th. So the end of next month we got American Idol, and the beginning of March we got the Masked Singer back. All right, last but not least, my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. There was one that really jumped on the front page for me in terms of potential best bets. And it is in college basketball. I am going to go with I was stuck between two. I haven't gone with an underdog in a while. I'm going to go with Mercer plus 4.5. I'm lay 1 unit on it against Wofford. I think they're going to win that game. This should be a 3-point line for Mercer, and Wofford's favored by more than that. So, give me Mercer plus 4.5 to win that game. That game jumped out, and the honorable mention one was Morehead State laying the 4.5 against Tennessee Tech. But rather take a home dog than a road favorite, if you ask me. All right, so there you have it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from tonight and looking ahead to tomorrow's games in each sport. Maybe I'll have an activity, maybe not. And obviously news and notes and my best bet as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.